Graham's dead. Okay, I had to start with that. Stay tuned for more on Graham, JT, and Victoria, and there's some Paris action with Lily and Kane. Stay tuned for this week's Restless Wrap.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Goodman, and I'm here today to discuss Y&R and this week's crazy set of episodes. But first, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Rach Goodman or on Facebook at Rachel Ann Goodman. Also, if you haven't done it already, you should definitely go over to Facebook and go to the at Restless Wrap page. I post the link to the show, and we can always talk about Y&R during the week when the show is not airing. So definitely go over there, like, follow, and you'll always be informed with when the show is going to be happening. So before we get into the craziness, which is that Graham is dead, and we definitely need to talk about this, I just want to give a couple of shout outs to the chat and let you guys know, for anyone who's tuning in live right now, we are taking calls tonight. So if you'd like to call in, that number is 424-253-0749. Again, if you're tuning in live and you want to call in, that number is 424-253-0749. Just want to give a shout out to everyone in the chat. We've been talking. I was typing so much that the chat actually blocked me out, so I'm sorry I did not respond to everyone. But we have Klex Anvers Love, we have Hubby Joe, we have Aaron Brody, and we have an incoming call. Hi, this is Rachel with Y&R AfterBuzz Show. Who's on the line?
Hi, Rachel. It's Brittany.
Hey, Brittany. Thanks for calling in. So, I wanted to get started at the top of the show by talking about Graham and the fact that he is dead. What do you?
That's what I wanted to talk about too.
Yeah. So, what do you think about his death, and what do you think about Ashley and Jack and how they're handling all of this, and Dina?
I thought that it was really good. Like, you didn't expect it when Dina killed him.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, because it was really good, because it was like he got what was coming to him a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think she was gonna do that, but he kind of brought it upon himself a little bit by trying to kill her. So I was like, really. Dang, I was shocked. It was really good. I like it, but my thing is, I didn't like how he was really devious about it, and how he made Ashley touch the needle thing or whatever, her prints are on it or whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny because when Graham invited Ashley over, I knew it was going to be no good, because first I thought, okay, maybe Graham's going to actually try to poison Ashley, but then I was like, maybe he's going to want her fingerprints around somewhere so that she gets the blame for what he's going to do. I didn't expect that Dina was going to turn around and do that. I thought Graham was actually going to get away with it and kill Dina, and that was going to be the end of her. What did you think? You said that you thought it was surprising that Graham actually got hit with the needle.
Well, yeah, because he was always a step ahead of them, always.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been nice if they had showed it too, instead of her just, them fighting, and then all of a sudden we see the needle is stuck in his arm. But yeah, I'm
yeah. Yeah.
Would have been better that way.
They did it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still like how they did it. So what do you think? So at the top of the show, we had obviously Graham with Dina, and how did you feel with how Graham, that whole exchange between Graham and Ashley when he invited her over to the hotel room?
I thought he played it off like he wanted to actually make peace, and wanted Dina wanted to do what's best for Dina and stuff. But then it turned out not what he wanted. He just wanted her just to touch the needle thing so she can get her fingerprints on it and frame her. I thought that was really wow. I thought he was gonna call her and be make a truce and be actually try to do what's best for Dina, but
yeah.
no.
Yeah. I knew something was going on with that because right before Ashley actually showed up, I think it was a couple scenes before, we see Graham looking at the drawer, and the whole time he's handling this poison, he's making sure to use those gloves. So I wasn't sure what was gonna happen.
Oh yeah, what if he would have tried to like off her or something? Yeah.
Yeah, like he was being really weird about that. What about? Did you think that? What did you think about the scene with Jack coming into the room where he basically tells Graham, like basically Graham, well, Dina thinks that Jack is John, the father, and and Graham's trying to correct Dina. What did you think about that exchange?
I thought Graham was wrong because you could be like, when people that have Alzheimer's, you can't be so like blunt with them, because what if they like could get like too overwhelmed and have like a mental breakdown or something? Like that's not to, like, you're supposed to take care of them, not just be like, I don't know,
Yeah,
be like mean.
I agree, because from Dina's perspective, what she thinks is reality. So it's really hard.
She doesn't know any better.
Yeah, she doesn't know. And obviously, Jack and John have a really striking resemblance to her. So it would make sense that she would confuse them. And for Graham to just kind of rip the Band-Aid off like that, it just felt really inappropriate and really cruel. And Graham, this past week, these past weeks, since he's kind of come back into the picture, he has shown this side of him that's been a lot crueler to Dina than what we had seen previously, you know, excluding the party where he straight out said all these terrible things. He had sort of seemed like he was taking care of her. But thank you, Brittany, for calling in. I definitely appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
And I hope you, have a great week, and
You too.
take care.
You too. Bye.
All right, so a couple other things to touch on with Graham, and then we'll move on. Let's actually check in with the chat. So we have Taylor Jones. Hi, Taylor. Says, good riddance, Graham. Clicks Anver's Love says, I'm glad Graham is dead. I've only watched a new episode of Y&R, mostly for Tessa and Mariah, but man, that guy was a genuine creep. Yeah, he was. And speaking of creep, what I wanted to mention about Graham was the fact that we see him at the very, like right before he gets stabbed, when he's kind of coddling Dina. Like he's he's basically talking to her and telling her all these things like, yes, my dear, it will all be over soon. And he's like talking very sweetly into her ear as she's sleeping when he's about to kill her. That whole scene was so creepy. Graham gets the award for creepiness for sure. Aaron Brody says, I'm glad Graham is dead, along with Zach and Juliet too. Now they can kill Tessa next, but don't kill Robbie because I love him. And Tessa, will definitely touch on her as we were talking in the chat, and I think a bunch of us all agreed with this. Tessa, I didn't like her after everything she had done to Mariah and just how cold she basically was after Mariah struggled to tell her about her feelings and poured her heart and soul out to Tessa, and Tessa just responded really coldly. So I wasn't a huge fan of her after that. But I didn't think it could get this bad with her, where she just actually steals a journal, uses words to create a song. It was so selfish. It was so cruel. It was so mean to do that to someone who you are trying to sort of be friends with again, but also to someone that you know cares about you in a really deep way. You're just going to take their journal, expose feelings that they obviously don't want people to know, and turn it into a public song without their permission. It was just so horrible, but we will get there. First, let's finish up with Graham and move on a little bit here. Tubby Joe says, Graham is creepy and got what he deserved. Aaron, yeah, Graham roughed up Dina a few weeks ago at the athletics club. Yeah, that's kind of when we were starting to see a different side to Graham. Before that, like over the summer when we were dealing with him, he didn't seem as cruel to her. He genuinely seemed nice, except for the fact that he kept calling his mom and having these really weird, like two-faced conversations about basically, uncovering the truth with Brent Davis. Michelle Altow says, I have a feeling that Paul will have more questions for Ashley. Yeah. And speaking of Ashley, okay, so basically what this whole thing was, and I kind of figured this is where they were going with it. Ashley, they had her, Graham invited her over. She touched the syringe, not realizing what was going on. Something about Graham claiming he was diabetic or something. And so her fingerprints are all over that needle. My question was, and if anyone in the chat noticed something differently than me, please let me know and we can talk about that. My question was, before Graham took the needle to stab Dina, we saw that he took that syringe and put it in like a Ziploc baggie after Ashley had touched it. So my question was, I guess he kept it in the Ziploc bag until he knew he was going to use it, and so he was going to put gloves on and stick it in. Now, here's the other thing, is that if Dina's the one who stuck Graham, her fingerprints would be all over that syringe too. So why aren't they questioning Dina too, considering her fingerprints would be all over it? Maybe not so much, like if they're just talking about the actual chemical itself, I can see that they would just have questions for Ashley because maybe she was the only one to actually touch that bottle with her fingers. But the syringe itself, the murder weapon, Dina's hands are all over that. And if they wouldn't question Dina, then I have a serious problem with this logic. Hubby Joe, I don't understand why Paul is giving Ashley the third degree. Simone says Dina could stay until she is blue in the face that she stabbed Graham. Paul will stay, still arrest the wrong person. And that's the thing, is that Dina, at the end of all of this, they take Graham in, to the hospital right before they pronounce him dead. And Dina goes to the police station and she turns herself in for the murder of Brent Davis. Now, here's the thing. Yeah, she said the wrong name, but Paul, I think, is aware that she has Alzheimer's at this point. So to me, if I'm Paul, if a woman comes in and says, oh yeah, by the way, I killed someone, his name is Brent Davis, Paul's reaction was, oh, well, I know that it doesn't mean anything because Brent Davis is already dead. But coincidentally, Graham dies on the same night that Dina comes in and says that she's murdered someone. My problem is, Paul should have picked up on the fact that it isn't just a coincidence, that Dina had everything to do with this, and because she has Alzheimer's, she said the wrong name. Not see, oh, Ashley's fingerprints, she must have something to do with this, and she had the motive to kill Graham, because I know that they've had really major issues with each other. Yeah, but if you checked, Dina's fingerprints would also be on that syringe, so I don't get the logic behind what Paul's thinking is. And every case that we see him work on, Paul is just always way off. I guess that's just part of what they need for the plot. They need that person to be way off so that it isn't so easy and that the whole thing isn't just solved. But it is frustrating, let me tell you. Aaron says, Paul is the worst cop. Yeah, seriously, I completely agree with that. He needs to, be replaced now with someone else who knows what they're doing. Obviously, not that Scott is in law, but I think Scott would make a much better guy than Paul, just saying, and obviously he's trying to get out of Newman. But we'll get to Scott in a second, too. So we have a couple of comments actually about Tessa. Hubby Joe says they need to write off Tessa. Clex Anvers Love says Mariah's face during the scene as she's realizing that the lyrics are hers was so heartbreaking. Like, can you imagine what was racing through her mind? Simone says, I now realize we have never known who Tessa truly is and what she's capable of. Yeah, and the thing with Tessa is that I know when the sex ring plotline was still going on, we kind of had been talking about how maybe Tessa was more involved in that than what we think right now, or what we're being told, not what we think. I wouldn't put it past Tessa. Obviously, she has this mentality of, okay, I'm going to do whatever I can to get to the top and to basically survive. And surviving in this case meant not getting kicked off this deal that she has with Devon. So she knew, okay, well, Mariah probably has some deep thoughts. Let me steal her stuff. And she did whatever was necessary to win. And so with that, with her knowing that Tessa is like this, I would not put it past her to basically have been part of the sex ring, because obviously she has this really terrible side to her where she can do things like that. Michelle Aldhouse says, I hope everyone believes Mariah. I'm curious too, since we're talking about Mariah, let's, might as well jump into that now. I'm curious what's going to happen with that whole situation, because Hillary, since Jabot kind of acquired the Hillary Hour, she's been trying to tone down her material, and the Mariah outburst might look like she's going against everything that Jack didn't want her to do. So I'm curious what the ramifications for that are going to be, because it is very dramatic. Obviously, Mariah was just reacting to what was happening, and it was very, like, there's nothing wrong with Mariah's reaction. It was very, like justified. I'm just curious what the public reaction is going to be to all this, and like Michelle Althouse said, if people are going to believe Mariah and what the situation is, because obviously I'm not a lawyer, but my guess would be that technically Mariah did not copyright what was in her journal. I am a writer, and I know that as a writer, in order to have the ability to sue someone for stealing your words, you have to copyright on copyright.gov. And I'm guessing Mariah did not do this. So, does she have a legal case? My guess and assumption is probably not. And so the fact that Tessa is using these lyrics that weren't, words that were not copyrighted, Tessa might have every right to do it. Now, will the public believe Mariah and view Tessa in a negative light because of it? Who knows? That's a good question, and I guess we'll find out next week when they bring it back. Clex Anver says, now I'm starting to question everything about Tessa. My main one being, okay, we know she gave Crystal Nikki's gun, but did she give it to her knowing her sister would go after and shoot Zach? That's a really good question. I think that Tessa is more aware of certain things than she lets people believe. I think she likes to play the victim. I think she likes to play someone who's this broken soul, and maybe she is broken, but I think that she likes to use that to her advantage. And clearly, there's a lot more with her character, and I think that she's probably using Noah, just like, I hate to say it, but just like Victor said, that Tessa's probably using him. Well, maybe she is, and something like what she did this week kind of makes me think that that's true. Aaron says, I can't believe she stole Mariah's diary, but I'm not surprised since she stole Nikki's gun a month ago. And not only did she steal, at least with stealing the gun, I gave her a pass on that one to an extent because it was to protect her sister, and I understood that. The diary is just, no. Like, that, there is nothing right about that. Whether there's legal ramifications or not, nothing right at all about what she did with that diary. Especially with someone that she was supposedly so close with, and someone who had been her best friend. You don't just do that to someone. Aaron says, Tessa is clearly a con artist. Nikki exposed her a few weeks ago, and so did Victor, but Noah and Mariah weren't around for that information. Yeah. I think that she's much more tied in with Zach and that sex ring than we're being told right now. Clex Anver's Love says, I just think it's sad that at this point, one of her best friends and her brother both are eating out of the palms of Tessa's hand, and the only one who believes her is Hillary. Hillary, of all people. Yeah. Okay, so did anyone actually kind of like Hillary in that moment? I know Aaron likes Hillary, so that's kind of a answer to my own question there. But for those of us who don't like Hillary, did anyone actually sort of think it was kind of cool with the Hillary and Mariah conversation right before the show? It almost seemed like they were starting to become friendly with each other, and Hillary, of all people, seemed like she might be on Mariah's side. I'll be curious to see her reaction next week. Collects Amber's love. I also would not want to be Tessa when Sharon finds out. Yeah, I will definitely be curious about that. So, okay, let's kind of, with everything that's going on with Mariah, I guess the only other thing to really mention is that throughout this week, we had seen Mariah and Tessa having a couple of back and forth conversations. Mariah was she was struggling with being in the same room with Tessa, and it was clear Mariah was making an effort. What made me even angrier, even before this whole diary thing, is that Tessa didn't even seem to recognize why it would be hard for Mariah to be in the same room with her. And everything with Noah doesn't know what's going on. I feel bad for him too, though he's kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to say. On the one hand, I understand why Noah would be clueless, but on the other, I kind of feel like Noah should sort of maybe kind of have an idea of what's going on. Maybe not, though. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But I think that Tessa should have definitely said something to Noah, considering she shared a kiss with Mariah, and now Tessa's in this relationship where she has kissed someone else, and it doesn't matter whether Tessa believes it meant anything or not. It still happened, and she still should have been honest with Noah about it. And the fact that Tessa hasn't been is making it hard for Mariah, because now Noah wants to know what's going on, and he has no idea. Maxwell Comics said, I am over Mariah. I'm sick of her being upset. Tessa didn't want to date her. This was the worst gay storyline I have ever seen, and they played Mariah as the angry lesbian storyline, and it's very insulting. So, okay, me personally, I don't agree with all of that. I definitely see where you're coming from. But I think that with Mariah, it wasn't just that Tessa didn't want to date her. Tessa was showing some really weird signals. And I think that I think that for most of the time it was unclear whether I think Tessa obviously doesn't know, or at least the way she's showing us, the way that we're viewing it, it's clear that Tessa doesn't really know how she feels with her emotions anyway. Maybe it's clear now that she definitely doesn't want to date Mariah, but the mixed signals were there. So I don't blame Mariah, and I think the fact that this is all new for Mariah because she has never been in this situation, I can see why Mariah's so upset, and I can see why she wouldn't really want to talk to Tessa. If I was in Mariah's situation, I wouldn't want to talk to Tessa either. And I'm just thinking about my own experiences. If it was, for example, if it had been a guy for me in this situation, I wouldn't want to talk to that guy if they did this to me. So I can understand why Mariah doesn't want to talk to Tessa after the situation. It's the same kind of thing. And I can also see why Mariah would still be upset, because she obviously felt a different way for Tessa than she'd ever felt about anyone else. If we can say that Mariah was in love with Tessa, I don't think she'd ever, I could be wrong, maybe she did come out and say she loved her. Whether she did or not, it's clear to me that Mariah loves Tessa or loved her, so this is much harder for Mariah to get over than if this was someone else that she only kind of sort of liked, and she had that special bond with Tessa, so I understand it. Now, I think I'm more annoyed with Tessa because of the mixed signals. Eventually, when Tessa made it clear she didn't want to date Mariah, fine, I get it, but I think that Mariah it still makes sense that she'd be upset. Maxwell Comics says she cannot talk to Tessa, but she doesn't have to be mean to Tessa. Okay, that I agree with. It is kind of like she is being a little rude to her. After this whole journal thing, though, I would hope that Mariah just wouldn't talk to Tessa at all. I don't know that there's any kind of, because Here's the thing, is that Tessa would have to give this major apology, and I don't personally think Tessa is in a place where she's going to give Mariah the apology that she deserves. Taylor says, this is going back to Hillary, I love Hillary now. N says, Hillary is also my favorite character. Aaron says, it's nice to see Hillary being nice again. I hope it lasts this time. Maxwell Comics, now that Tessa stole the book, I understand the range. Tessa was wrong for that, yeah. Simone, Tess only cares about herself and her career. Maria says, am I the only one who thinks they're still planning on having Mariah and Tessa get together? I wouldn't be surprised. Tessa, so it's pretty messed up what she did with that book, but I still feel like Tessa could be redeemed as a character. She hasn't done anything that goes past that point, at least for me anyway. So I could see that they would still try to get them together. They are making it, like they were showing the flashbacks, and they are kind of making it a big deal, to the point where, okay, it might happen, but it's going to be a really rocky road for the two of them, is what it seems. And hey, it's a soap. It kind of has to be rocky, otherwise it would be too easy. Clixandra Love says, here's the thing though, Mariah's trying her best not to talk to Tessa, but she's constantly being put in positions where she has no choice, which really isn't fair to her at all. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that I agree with Maxwell that Mariah did have her moments where she was being rude to Tessa. But also, like what Clixandra says, Mariah was put in positions where she had to talk to Tessa, and it wasn't fair at all to her. So, all right, let's talk about the Hillary pregnancy storyline, which hasn't happened yet, but everyone in the chat who's watching, we had started to talk about Hillary a little bit. What do you guys think about, in general, how Hillary's acting, and what do you make of this whole pregnancy thing, and what do you think about Hillary and Devon? Because I thought that Hillary was basically going to ask Devon to be the father of her child the last time that they spoke, when they were in, I guess they ran into each other at one point. And that's kind of where I thought the storyline was going. Let's see. So actually we have, well, Anne also says that she's curious about the Hillary pregnancy storyline. Clicks Anne Verlove says, I'm interested to see how being a mother could really make Hillary into a better person. And Hillary, she is a much more complex character than I think I previously realized. I know months ago, all I could ever say about Hillary was that I didn't like her, but I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that we just don't know about her character, a lot of things we can still explore. Now I think I feel more bad, I feel worse for Hillary than I did before, and I sort of kind of understand her attitude because of her troubling past. I'm really curious what's going to happen if she does get pregnant, how that's going to change her, and who she's going to try, if she's going to try to have someone, like, I don't know if she's just going to maybe adopt or actually try to have her own child. That was another question. Aaron says, I'm shocked that Hillary wants to be a mom now. So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that. So, getting back into the story here, too, let's discuss, just real briefly, everything going on with Sharon and Kathy. We had seen Kathy before, kind of around the holidays, when Nikki ran into her, and Nikki thought it was Katherine's ghost, sort of. Not that Kathy, the homeless woman herself, was the ghost, but that everything had kind of been worked, had kind of worked itself into Nikki's life, kind of with the, as if the spirit of Katherine had kind of pushed it in that direction, if that makes any sense. But Sharon runs into the homeless woman, Kathy, at Crimson Lights, and she ends up inviting her and her kids to live with her. Nick's not too thrilled with the idea. Nikki, when Nikki talks to Nick, she doesn't seem too thrilled with the idea either. But then when she goes to Sharon's house to basically talk some sense into her, she runs into Kathy, realizes that she's met this woman before, and suddenly Nikki changes her tune, and she is all for Sharon doing this, and it actually inspires Nikki to go and come up with this plan so that she can basically have what Nikki ends up doing is she talks to Nick, and they decide they're going to do this charity where they promote affordable housing for families with low income, which is great. And I love the fact that Nikki's doing this. I have to say, though, there are moments when I feel like Nikki definitely oversteps her boundaries. And I generally think I like her as a character, but it annoys me when she gets in her kid's business like to the extreme. And this happened a couple times this week. One of the cases was when she basically stormed off to go visit Sharon, like she was going to give her a piece of her mind about having the family living with her. That was one time. Another time this week was when Nikki got way too involved with everything. Well, this was last week. She got involved with Reed. I thought that was overstepping the boundaries a little bit, even though I kind of like what they're doing with Reed to get him into shape. But then the other thing is that Nikki seems like she's going to be overstepping her boundaries with the relationship that is now developing between JT and Victoria, which I personally absolutely love. So let's move on and touch on that, because we had some really interesting scenes with JT and Victoria. I have to say, too, I've been watching Y&R since May, when I first came on the show. I have never seen Victoria act so happy, like as a character, until this new development with JT. So I am all for this relationship. I think this is exactly what Victoria needed. Also, I have to make this comment too. I didn't realize that Thad Luckenbill, the actor who plays JT, and the actress who plays Victoria, Amelia Heinley, and I am so sorry if I butchered that name. Please let me know in the chat. I will correct myself. I didn't realize that the actors were actually married in real life, and that they actually just got divorced last year, or they announced their divorce, I guess. And the thing is, their chemistry is so strong that I never would have guessed that they actually were together and got divorced, because they seem like the characters, that is some strong chemistry, let me tell you. So yeah, we have Clanver Love saying awkward, and yeah, I just kept thinking, like, okay, if that were me, like if I had just gotten divorced from someone and I had to kiss them on set, and it was just hilarious too, because not hilarious, awkward, because the whole thing with JT and Victoria was JT is still married, but he just got served the papers for the divorce, and they're talking all these things about rekindling and not making the same mistakes as when JT and Victoria were married before. And I'm thinking, wow, like that must have been so uncomfortable for them to discuss, considering they had just gone through the divorce process. So that is amazing that they can still show that much chemistry after dealing with that in their personal lives. I just wanted to say that and throw that out there. Their scenes together were some of my favorite scenes, especially with the fact that Victoria seems happier than ever, and the fact that JT and Victoria as characters seem like they've grown a lot, and that they're mature adults, and that they can work through any problems they had in the past. And that seems to be a major theme that we kind of went through these last couple of weeks, especially this last week, with couples who either were married and are getting back together, or Lily and Kane, who are working through their marriage so that they don't have to divorce. But basically, I hope that everything with Victoria and JT continues and that nothing interferes, because I really like them being together, definitely. Aaron says, oh my God, JT and Victoria are like rabbits right now. Aaron Brody, Victor walked in this week on them about to have sex on the wall. Yeah, and that was hilarious too, because it felt like it was two teenagers who were about to have sex and their father just walked in. It was so hilariously awkward. Also, This is the first time I've ever seen Victor just walk into the house without, well, he claims he knocked. We didn't hear a knock, so I don't know. This is the first time I've seen Victor just walk into their house. It was hilarious, but I do feel bad for, you know, any problems that Nikki and Victor might give them. And Rachel, did you see the Christmas episode when Hillary read her childhood letter to Santa? It was so sad. Yeah, that's actually when I started feeling really bad for Hillary. When basically, I don't even think we talked about it on the show because I think that was when we had our hiatus at AFTERBUZZ. And basically what happened was Hillary, she's on air with Devon, and Hillary wanted to do something good, so she was reading letters to Santa from people. And I think it was Devon who found an old letter from Hillary. I think it was him. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hillary read a letter, and it ended up being her letter. And it was basically this little girl saying she just wanted to help her mother and that they were so poor and she just wanted to help her. And that's all she wanted for Christmas was for her mother to be happy. And it was so sad. And that made me start to like Hillary, definitely. Michelle Althouse, you missed when Billy and Victoria got back together again. Victoria was very happy then. That's interesting. I could see that too because before JT came back into the picture, I was all for Billy and Victoria getting back together, especially when they had that kiss. They have a chemistry too. So, and I like Billy as a character. I know he's done some kind of crappy things, but generally I like Billy, and I could see him being with Victoria too. So I wouldn't be upset if that's the road that ends up happening, but right now I am loving the fact that JT and Victoria are together. I just hope that they don't, either one of them get hot-headed and do something stupid and end the marriage, or not the marriage, end the relationship all over again. But I loved the line when Victoria gives JT the key and tells him something like, "This is your home is here, come and live with me." It was really beautiful. I loved that line. Klex Anver says, I started to like Hillary this past week. I like that she's on Mariah's side, but I'm just really, really hoping there's not a digression to where I don't like her again. I'm hoping that too, but it would be interesting to see some kind of friendship develop between Mariah and Hillary. I would be interested to see that. Okay, so just for time's sake, let's go over and just talk about Scott and Abby really fast, and then we'll touch on Lily and Kane. So basically, Scott goes all the way to Paris to apologize to Abby, and they go and they guess they grab a drink or maybe dinner or whatever it is in the Parisian cafe, which was kind of nice. And basically, just like that, Abby convinces Victor to sell # to Scott. And now, earlier in this week, in the episodes, Abby was basically telling Lily that she was thinking about staying in either Paris or maybe London and not going back to Genoa City because Genoa City, like, she needed a break. And my husband and I were watching, and we basically agreed that we figured it was because the actress who plays Abby, she's pregnant, and maybe this is kind of her way of taking a break from the show for a couple months after she has her baby. But I still loved the storyline, and the whole thing with Scott, Scott basically said he's going to stay in London, is what it sounds like. I was almost thinking that Abby was trying to tell Scott, stay in London with me, or Paris with me, and that's where she was going with this, but obviously she wasn't, and they ended. I don't believe that's the last of Abby and Scott. I think they're gonna end up together somehow, some way. It was just too tragic of an ending, like too unfulfilled for it to end that way. I think that they're gonna end up in Paris or London and run into each other. So let's just to kind of touch on the last major thing here, Kane and Lily. So it was kind of, I wasn't sure if Kane and Lily were actually going to run into each other in Paris, because it seemed like they just kept missing each other. Kane went into the hotel room, Lily walks out, it turns out she's right across from him. Kane knew he was in the same hotel room. I don't think he realized that he was right across from her. Maybe he did, I could be wrong. In any case, Lily and Kane end up, finally, thanks to Abby, Kane ends up racing to the airport because Lily got done work early and was going to head home, catches her, and then they end up spending a really romantic evening together in Paris. before they go home, and they basically agree that they're gonna try to fix their marriage. And I thought it was really touching, and especially the fact that they kept showing flashbacks of Lily and Kane and showing, you know, all their different memories. It was really sweet, and I liked it. And I like Kane and Lily as a couple. If you had asked me this back in July, I would have said, no, Lily, don't do it. But Kane has grown so much as a character that I'm really glad this is what's happening. I just hope Kane doesn't mess it up. I hope Lily doesn't mess it up. Not that she would per se. And I also hope that Sam doesn't give Lily so much, you know, worry that this is going to be a constant reminder that Lily's going to end up wanting Kane to leave again, because that's kind of the impression I was getting from Lily's reactions toward the end of the week. Simone says, I'm happy Lily and Kane are getting somewhere with their relationship. Aaron says, I'm glad Kane and Lily are back together, but the baby is going to be a struggle for Lily to deal with. Yeah, I agree with that. Clex Anver said, I don't know about Scott and Abby. I've barely watched the show, but my friend read about characters and once told me that she has gone after one of Mariah's boyfriends in the past, and now Sharon's. Yeah, so as far as Scott and Abby, this time around, at least I didn't watch the show when in the past with Abby, but with the whole thing with Scott, to me it didn't come across like Abby was trying to steal Scott from Sharon. It seemed more like Abby just sort of had this chemistry with Scott regardless of who he was with. So that's my personal opinion. I don't know if you guys in the chat have anything else to add to that. I think we have Michelle Outhouse. I think she's talking about Lily and Kane. They are the one couple who needs to be together. Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. And I just hope that Lily and Kane can work through the baby situation with Sam. And I think the last thing to get to here is, I just want to mention, this is our ending song too. We're not quite there yet, but before we get there, I just wanted to mention that the actress who plays Tessa, I think her name is Kate Fairbanks. I think she's actually a singer in real life, because that song they were playing, How Could I Lie, I Shazammed it while it was playing and it came up as an actual song. So just want to say that our engineer, Steve, said that the song, like, he can tell when a song is produced really well. And from the second that we played that song, he was like, yeah, this one's produced really well. So I just want to give a shout out to that song. It's actually really good. And I added it to one of my playlists, so I will be listening to that. And I love how they had the cut at the end where they were playing that song, the one where Tessa apparently stole the lyrics from Mariah, just so we're clear here. And they're playing it as we see Tessa performing. We see Lily holding Sam, and then eventually we cut back to Tessa again, and we see Mariah reacting, and she basically jumps up and tells Tessa that she needs to rot in hell for stealing these words, and I understand that. So let's get to our lol moment really fast here. I had a couple of things. At first, I had Kane looking out the window in his hotel room, because it just seems so cliche that he would be doing that in Paris. The other thing, and I think this was funnier, is when Graham was prepping to stick Dina with the needle, because he's kissing her on the head, and oh my god, like it was so melodramatic, and it was hilarious, and I started cracking up when I probably shouldn't have been. So, that being said, let me see if we have any other comments in the chat before we wind this down. Clex Anver says, I feel bad for Lily when it comes to Sam. Like, how can you ask her to raise a baby you had with a woman you cheated on her with? Insensitive. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Aaron says, Lily told Abby this week she might have made a mistake getting back together with Kane. Yeah, and it's very clear that Lily she's not 100% sure. Even in the hotel room, she didn't commit to saying she wanted Kane at first. It's still a struggle for her. And yeah, finally she did agree, and they did agree to be with each other again, but it is going to be a struggle. But I love how YNR's portraying it, because it feels, I mean, even though the circumstances seem a little far-fetched, and I have not heard of this happening in real life, As far as the emotions and what Lily's going through, I love how they're realistically showing emotions of two people in a marriage who are trying to make something work. And that, to me, says volumes. Lily and Kane could have called it quits, but instead the message is that even though they're going through all these terrible things and that there has been reasons why Lily and Kane have broken each other's trust in the past, they are willing to work past it to make their marriage work. And I think that is a really important message. And I love the fact that we saw that in Y&R, that they're not taking the easy way out. They're taking the hard way out. So on that note, I think that's a good place for us to wrap up. The song that we have playing is the Kate Fairbanks song, How Could a Lie? And I love it. And so that's why I wanted to end on it. My name is Rachel Goodman. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Rach Goodman, or on Facebook at Rachel Ann Goodman. Also, we have a Facebook page at Restless Rap. So if you go over there, like, follow, you'll be notified when the show's going up, so you don't have to search for it. And if anyone wants to comment throughout the week about Y&R anything, that would be an awesome place to do it. So thank you all for tuning in. It has been a wonderful week. I want to give a shout out to the chat again for joining in. I couldn't do this show without you guys. You are my amazing co-hosts. And thank you all. Have a great week, and we will see you next week at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Sunday. Bye, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
The answer